There are more ways to celebrate than ever before at the Jeep Celebration event. Hurry in for great deals today on the only brand that lets you go anywhere and do anything. And right now, get $1,500 total cash allowance on the purchase of a 2022 Jeep Compass Latitude 4x4. Don't miss this great offer. Go to Jeep.com to find your local dealer. Hurry into the Jeep Celebration event today. Residency restrictions apply. Must take retail delivery by 5/2/22. Jeep is a registered trademark of FCA US LLC.
So this gender and with every role model, of course, there comes some expectations with you, and this even goes so far to dress codes and how men and women dress. But let me be clear on this. I mean, this is not all bullshit. Indeed it is not, because there are a lot of examples in history. For example, in ancient Greece, the ancient Greeks, they mocked Persians because Persians wore pants, and they some sort of thought that wearing pants is some sort of feminine. Or in Scotland, the Scottish kilt is some sort of many people make joke about it, but it is some sort of, you would assume, not male attire. However, the ancient Greek civilization is actually a very interesting, as well as the Roman civilization, because if you watch closely the ancient Greek civilization, it is rather some sort of a male-dominated, homoerotic culture, because you could see that the male body, or the idealized form of the male body, is in the center. This is something you see in all sculptures, in all Greek sculptures, or how men are portrayed as strong, as some sort of, in a way, strong and youthful, muscular. You may have seen some of these that normal men, even old people have, despite the fact that they have an old chubby head, that they were put upon a youthful body. And as well as women, the way in ancient Greek women are being portrayed is rather having male features, having rugged faces. It's not always so, but or women are in a way considered childlike, and so on. And in ancient Greek, homosexuality was partially institutionalized. For example, in Sparta, the Spartan military, where homosexuality was even supported, and there were even some elite troops within the Greek military who would consist mainly of homosexuals, so that being a man and being straight was considered way more different than in ancient Greek, as well as in ancient Rome. There is an example from one Roman emperor who was scoffed because he was not a homosexual. This was I have again forgotten his name, but there was one incident in the Roman Empire where one emperor was hated for because he did not engage in homosexuality, and so on. So it was pretty much widespread. Homosexuality was very widespread within the ancient world, and then with Christianity, this then came everything different. I mean, when I think about gender roles, when I think about in general how a society could have been structured, then I always think about the animal kingdom, especially bees. Bees have as well as ants, but bees have a very complex society, and this is a female-dominated society. Bees and if you only watch some male in this society for being there in peace. Their own their sole purpose is to be the sperm donators and do nothing else. So in this society, uh, uh, male men play a second fiddle, and I always think to myself, this is actually how humanity could have ended as well, because human because everyone always says, I mean, this is rather a man perception that you have to be strong to lead a society, or that strength alone would determine why men are in leading positions in a society. Well, this is not true. This is not true in that sense that humans always throughout evolution use tools to solve. Without tools, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, and so on, they would have never succeeded. So they needed to make spears or to kiss spears and what have you to kill mammoths and all these wild animals. They had to master fire to protect themselves. So human history is not the history about physical strength. It is rather his history of brain power to find solutions, and and this does not exclude women, not at all. For example, if you want, you could some sort of make a play in your head that women could have been on top of the society as well, despite the fact that women bear children. Of course, like I said, I mean, like in the bee world or among the bees, there's of course one queen who has only one purpose, and this is to bearing children. And now imagine what would have happened if a society would have built upon that. However, you could then say, I mean, of course, this is only a play and this is only some sort of thought experiment, but you could say, yeah, true, women bear children, but this means that women know how to raise children, and this would then mean women should raise children and people, and since women know how to raise children, presumably know how to raise children and people, they know what they would need to, and when they know what these people need to, they could as well as go into politics, and so taking charge of the society, because women, and I will talk about this shortly, are way more important than men when it comes to reproduction of a society. And even though we always compare this to this ancient thinking, the separation between the reproduction or we somehow the entire discussion of women and of equality of gender is confined to this one point, and this is that women bear children. This is a fact. Nevertheless, this is a fact, and you can't change it. And I do not think that you should change it. And some men somehow use this as justification that women would then should be confined to a subordinated role. But if you go through this thought experiment, then you could say, why did women not become politicians then? I mean, if you think that women know how to raise children, women are close to children, this means women are social, this means women know or would know. So conditional, we have to use the conditional. Women would know what's best for people, and therefore women would know how to make rules and laws for society. Women would know best how to lead a society, and that's why women should all become politicians. And because women are very important for the reproduction of the society, so only men should be sent into war, because 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 if a woman dies, this is way more harmful than if a man dies. This is something we see in the in bees, in the animal kingdom, among bees. So if male or the man are only sperm donators, uh, sperm donors, this is their sole purpose in life, to and whereas women, they have the womb, and they are way more important, and men are somehow expendable. And this is something you can even see among the bees when it's winter, and if there is no more space in the hive, then those male bees, they would thrown out of the hive in the bitter cold. So if there is no purpose or use for them anymore, then they are expendable, and this is happening. This is what you can witness among the bees. So if there's no use for them anymore, they get rid of them, and you could somehow indeed apply this to human society as well, because man in the end are nothing else than sperm donors. But what I wanna personally push back the forward is that the biological sex, so this means your physical, how your brain works, the hormones which goes through your bodies, and this has nothing and partially to do with how you, whether you have a womb or not, that this would not be determine your thinking. I mean, this is something you have to push back, especially if you think about transsexual approaches, so that you have to have, or your conscience has to have a foundation in reality. This is not only philosophical, this is as well as true. So this means your conscience, your approach to the world has to have a foundation in reality. This means your biological sex whatsoever, or else it is just mere imagination. And one great example, which I think partially fits here, is the case of Rachel Dolezal. Dolezal, I mean, those who not know who is that Rachel Dolezal was a white woman who dressed up like an African American, and then would present herself as an African American, and this was a huge scandal within the left, so that the left itself really butchered her verbally, butchered her in the media, man, that she took advantage of, that she had a lot of privileges and whatsoever. And this was very interesting. I mean, the reason why I bring this up, because the discussion about Rachel Dolezal was very important, or in a way interesting, because it showed that many within the left actually really admitted that you have to have a foundation in reality, that you cannot imagine to be black if you are not, that it is very important to have these experiences, or you need to have these experiences of blackness in order to really call yourself black. And I think this was a very interesting discussion, and this is something you can apply to the biological sex as well. You have to have these experiences. I mean, these experiences can of course be subconscious or whatever, but they have to be there because you have hormones in your body, you have estrogen in your body, you have testosterone in your body, and this has a certain effect on you no matter what it is. I mean, it is true that your social role model, that this is constructed. And if you only see, and in the ancient world, yeah, indeed, back then things were different, and this is actually a scathing indictment that you would act according to your biological sex, but never there is what is not true, and which I think would some sort of lead into nowhere, is when you some sort of deny your biological sex as well, and then say, yeah, well, it is all imaginary, or I can be whoever I want to be here. This is I know this is very problematic, and this is why I brought up the issue of Rachel Dolezal in the US, who said that she would identify as black and was booed off stage, and this is very important indeed, and I think partially it is true for anything that is not founded in reality. So if you have to have a conscience from the world, it always has to be founded in or in reality, or else it is pure imagination. It is true that gender roles, so how women dress, how women present themselves in public, this is constructed, partially constructed, and that it somehow conceals your real your biological sex. But I think, and this is again what in some thought schools, people said, for example, that the reason why women would bear children, or because women bear children, this would make them docile, non-violent, pacific. This is what you would need to have in order to raise children. I think this is not true in that sense. I mean, it is true that women, first of all, it is not true that women are not violent, because we have to clear the term of violence. Violence does not mean physical violence. Violence means you can be really mean and violent with your tongue. And if you see and hear some women, how they talk, and they are mean as well and violent as well. So it is rather men who seek physical confrontation, whereas women, you could say, are smart enough, or have the wits to inflict wounds with their tongues. So violence in that sense is not true. And there are even examples from independent wars or whatsoever, stating that women would be more violent than ever. I mean, this is, of course, this has many reasons whatsoever. But one approach which I want to say, which you could say, I mean, of course, women are responsible for the reproduction of society. This means women, if for a fact, are way more important for society than men, because you only need a few men to reproduce a society, whereas you need a lot of women to reproduce a society, to keep a society alive. So this is what reproduction means, so that you some sort of can generate new people. So only a few men as sperm donors, whereas you need a lot of women to make that happen. And this is something you could argue, again, this is indeed controversial as well, but then you could argue because women know about their importance in the society. They are not docile, or they are not pacifistic, or and so on, but rather very cautious, because women approach physical confrontation way more cautiously because of their importance, because so much depends on them. You could then say women act way more responsible as man in a way, in a biological term, which is actually true. Women, and there are a lot of sociological studies. Women choose their men carefully and cautiously, and this is something you could apply as well to a behavior. This is not docile, this is not non-violent, rather cautious, because so much depends on them, so much depends on the society, so that you approach physical violence cautiously, and in biological terms, this is true. It is way more severe when a woman dies than a man, because men are in a way expendable, and this makes women, you could say, women behavior is rather being considered in a foresight, and this is, as well as you could found this in an sociological framing. You could say women have or for women it is some sort of, they risk to be socially outcasted, because women, they are immediately being, if a woman has or maintains many sexual relationships, for example, then she will be mostly outcasted or stigmatized as a whore, and so on. So women have more to lose, as this would make them more cautiously, and they rather would move through this space more carefully, more responsible, and with foresight. This is what you could say. So I don't think that women would not be violent at all, because if you extend violence, not only physical violence, but as well as violent with words, with vocabularies, then you will know that women are as violent as men, or even worse. So this has no foundation whatsoever. Now this was one part of feminism in the millennial age. The next time we will continue, and of course we will have to talk about the male role, how millennial men are actually influenced by women, and how this has an effect on them. So this was Adem Kirbas from Turkey, Ordu. I hope you all are doing fine in this pandemic, and keep safe. Bye.
It's finally time to start firing up the grill. From city to shore, Acme is everything you need to prep for this summer season. Download the Acme app to shop for this season's essentials any way you want. Open the Acme app, clip your deals, then order your items online. An experienced Acme associate will carefully select your groceries, bag your order, and bring it right to your car or deliver right to your door. Download the app or visit acmemarkets.com for program details.